Hey everybody, welcome back to our neck of the woods. We have got another Ram 3500 video for you guys, and today this video is going to start with some new tires. All right, so our Ram 3500 here is a 2022. It's got 60,000 miles on it, and nowhere is it indicated that the tires have ever been replaced. And the fact that these tires back here, especially in the middle, look like they're almost bald. I mean, there's like just a millimeter or two in between the treads there. And the fact that they're the Nexen Rodian HTXs, these look to be the original tires. So 60,000 miles, not bad for them, but winter is coming and we need to get something that actually has tread or we're gonna be in some trouble. Now, one downside, unfortunately, to a dually is we can't just put our old tires back on that we have sitting over here in the corner, which is one of these guys right here. And that is because with a dually tire, these are 35-inch tires, or technically they're not called 35s. It's a 285, 75, 18. If you do the math, it's basically almost a 35. But we can't just slap those on because they really don't make a 35-inch tall tire that is basically really narrow. And unfortunately, when you have two tires in the rear, if you put a really wide tire on, the tires actually end up hitting themselves. And as you can see, between the space in there, you only got about an inch or so. And by putting on a really wide tire, like a 285, those two tires will end up rubbing on there. Some people will put on spacers, but I do not like spacers on trucks because I think the minimum is like 2 inches or so. Although they do have a smaller, like 1/4 inch or 1/2 inches that I think do fit. But I don't think that's enough space for a 285 tire. And with a 2.5 inch spacer, it kicks these out beyond the wheel well, and I just despise that look. I think it looks horrible. You end up chewing everything up, and you end up throwing rocks at like people behind you. So I do not like a 2-inch spacer to try and put a fatter tire on here. I would like to say relatively within the OEM spec for that width. But I do want a taller tire. So the factory tires are 235 80/17. And based on what I can find online, it looks like you can get away with a 255 80/17. So we have gone with the Falken Wildpeaks ATs. They are an off-road, like all-terrain tire. They are load rated for E, which is like 3,100 pounds per tire. So that's good if you ever want to try and tow. Max towing at like 32,000 pounds or having more than 5,300 pounds of payload. It will be able to handle that. You can see they are a very aggressive tire. A lot of meat, a lot of nub, but they do have slits on all of their nubs, so they are rated for also at like winter and mountain also. So they will be able to get the job done here in Ohio for us. And as far as I can tell online, again, they will fit in the rear because we are going from a 235 to a 255, so we're getting 20 millimeters more. But when you do the math, you're only doing 10 millimeters in on one tire and 10 millimeters on another in between that space. So it's not like it's 40 millimeters that they're actually gonna rub. So we shouldn't need a spacer as far as I can tell. But if somebody out there does make like a 1/4 inch spacer, maybe a 1/2 inch spacer, we could throw that in there and get them separated and reduce that 20 millimeter close-up area. Now, I believe these tires here, factory on the car, they are, I think, 31 inches. But just for shits and giggles, if you compare that to the 35, you can just tell how much more massive these 35s are than the factory 31s. And then if we compare one of the Falkens being only 20 millimeters wider, but still having an 80 aspect ratio, it does increase the size of the tire to 33. So we are getting a bigger tire, which you can see there it does look like it's about 2 inches taller, but the truck is only gonna get 1 inch taller because again, you have to split that difference. So you'll have 1 inch up and you'll have 1 inch down. So the truck is gonna get taller, which is gonna be a little bit cooler. I think it's gonna look a little better looking. Obviously, again, overall, it is a much bigger tire. And then I was a little bit worried. The dualies only come with like 6-inch wide tires. And you don't want to go too wide because then you could potentially pop off of the bead. Like these factory 35s over here, those I think are 8 or 8.5 inches wide. So they can support a 285 pretty much no problem. You can see there's like no real big bulge here. But if you look at the distance in between the tire here, like that's only about 3 inches or so separating that. So while it may be a 255, it looks like this tire is really necked down to where it can fit into a 6-inch rim and widen out, and we really shouldn't have any problems. But I will be back tomorrow. I have got an appointment at 2 p.m. to get all of them installed. I did only buy 6. I will have to buy a 7th down the road because if I ever do get a flat tire, hopefully it happens in the rear and I can just kind of limp home on one of the rear tires and I can just take the flat tire off, because I did not buy 7 of them to replace out the spare. So fingers crossed I don't ever get a flat tire in the front, or I'm not gonna be able to drive home very well having one tire being 2 inches shorter than the other side. But again, I will be back tomorrow. I will give you my impression. I will let you see how the truck looks with those taller, more aggressive tires. And actually the truck's gonna get way taller because the tread is basically gone on these tires. So it actually does look a little bit different because the factory tread was probably, you know, about a 1/2 inch taller than what we have now. So I'm gonna give you overall thoughts, looks, and then we will find something else in this video to do on the truck. So we're not just showing off some tires, but I will see you guys back tomorrow afternoon. All right, everybody, new shoe day. My appointment here is in about a half hour. So I'm gonna go get these installed. I can already make 3 predictions though. Number 1, because we're going from basically a flat bald tire to a bigger, knobbier, I guarantee my mileage per gallon is gonna drop. Currently, we're sitting at around 18 miles a gallon. When I was towing the skid steer the other day, I dropped down to about 15.5, and that was only about a 14,000 pound load. But the highest I've ever seen on the dash when like basically all highway driving was almost 20 miles per gallon. So we're definitely looking at a big difference in between the two, meaning towing, city, and then highway. So the fact that these tires I think are 1.3 inches bigger and they're knobbier, they're gonna make more noise and they're gonna get less miles per gallon. But I still like the fact that the diesel truck here gets better mile per gallon than the 2500 gas Hemi that we had. That thing was only getting about 14.5 miles per gallon. So quite a big difference between the two, especially when this is a dually and weighs like 1,000 pounds more. And then my third prediction is going to be Ram decided to put those wheel weights on the outside of the wheel and hammer them on. And the fact that we have black powder coated wheels, they're gonna have to pop the old ones off and hammer new ones on. There's really no way to avoid it, but I guarantee getting the old ones off, you're gonna see a big old gouge and scratch on the wheel. It's gonna look horrible. Again, that's something that Ram did by hammering those on, so it's not something that the tire place is gonna be at fault for. But hopefully they don't like misplace one when they're balancing it and then have to like pop it off and put another one on, because then they're just gonna make multiple spots all the way around. And again, if you look at the imaging right here, there's absolutely no other wheel weight signs all the way around that wheel, except for that one that's still on there. So again, I guarantee these are the original tires that came with the truck. All right, everybody, driving home, got it done after 3 hours. So yes, the sun is setting. Apparently it wasn't that easy for him to do. Those bigger tires are harder to install. Yes, I get that. But it seems like their labor rates also went up, and they like to charge more money when you have a taller tire. So almost $252 to get 6 of them installed, with lots of shop supplies. And again, another like $10 charge for being over 55 on the aspect ratio. They charge $10 more per tire, but whatever. And then there was almost $100 that they charge for being a dually, and that is for a half hour extra of work. So it seems like a local Firestone place is almost $200 an hour for labor nowadays. That is just insane to me. I don't even want to know what dealership rates are nowadays if a local Firestone charges that much for an hour worth of labor. But overall, first impressions riding home here, the tires actually are not that loud. So I was wrong. The noise in here is not bad at all. Although this being a Laramie, I think it is really well insulated that you can't hear a lot going on the outside. I can still hear the diesel exhaust brake and the turbo whistle more than anything. So these tires actually are pretty good on their sound. I won't know obviously on the mile per hour to see if I'm actually dropping until I get some highway usage in or get more distance in between me and Firestone. So can't comment on that yet. But as for leaving marks on the wheels, I don't know how bad it was. The wheel weights, there's a lot of dirt and debris that was under them and they did not wipe it off. So I'm sure there's a little mark or two from the factory weights from where they got popped off. But hopefully it doesn't look like that detrimental to like scratching the paint off, which I don't think it is. And this kind of being a work truck, I really don't care that much. But as soon as we get back home here, I took some measurements to see how tall the truck actually was before, and I'll measure when we get back home to see how much we actually did lift the truck with these bigger tires. Let you guys see how it looks, and then I want to more importantly see the distance in between the two dual tires to see if we do need a spacer. But that's probably not going to be that easy to tell, because while there may be a gap, you really aren't going to know until you put like 5,000 pounds in the bed of the truck to where the tires actually get like compressed down and the bulges of the tires actually get closer together to touching. Or if you're driving down the road and you hit like a big pothole or a big speed bump where the tires get pressed up really hard into the wheel, you won't actually ever know if they get compressed enough to where they may actually touch until it actually happens. But again, it's just something to keep an eye on and something to think about down the road, that if you pop the rear off, if you're seeing those sidewalls touch each other every now and again from big bumps or from too much weight, you could rub those sidewalls down, which could end up into a tire being blown out, which would be very dangerous. So something that you gotta have to kind of keep an eye on and watch out for, and just think about when you are traveling and having big heavy loads on the truck. All right, everybody, back home, looking good. The front tires definitely do look a hell of a lot more aggressive and definitely different. I am, again, very surprised that a 255 people do make it fit. You can see there is a lot more bulge in here because it's necking down so much to a 6-inch wide wheel. A 255 should definitely probably go on something that's more like 7 or 8 inches wide. But I will say, because we have more sidewall here, the ride home was actually very enjoyable. I almost want to say it's actually a little bit more plush. They did pump the fronts up to the factory specs, which I believe the door sticker says the front should be pumped up to 80 PSI. Yep, and the rears should be pumped up to 65, and that's exactly where they're at. So first thing first, with the rear being kind of a little bit wider, probably 10 millimeters more, you can see it's still fitting within the wheel well, which to me is what you want. That's what makes it look good, in my opinion, to have that flush look. I don't like it sucked in, and I don't like tires kicking out. As for the rear, yeah, we've got maybe a 1/2 inch in there now. So again, I don't think it's gonna be bad everyday driving. That looks more than fine. You won't know until you put like 5,000 pounds into the bed of the truck and get these tires to like squat where their sidewalls start bulging out. That way the inner and the outer will bulge closer together. Some people, I think online, said you can just pump them up a little bit more. So instead of running like 65 that the factory says that you should, because this is basically the same size wheel and tire on the front, you could totally go to 80 PSI, and that would stiffen that sidewall up so it doesn't compress as much. But again, you won't know until you pop these off once in a while with a heavy load or hitting a lot of like bumps and stuff, that you'll see that your sidewalls may actually be rubbing. But I don't think it's gonna be that bad. Again, we could put a little bit of a spacer. I know people can go up to a 1/2 inch and you still got threads on there, because the way these dualies work, it's one stud that holds both wheels on with one lug nut out here. And there's a little bit of thread sticking out on the factory lug nut that you could put a 1/4 or a 1/2 inch spacer, put the lug nut back on, and there's plenty of thread engaging that it would be able to hold a 1/2 inch on there, and you would be completely safe and fine. But I do love the look. Real quick, let's measure. Let's see what we get. Let's see how tall we actually made the truck. The front used to be 39.5. And now we're sitting at 40. So we've only gone a half of an inch taller, which that's a little surprising. So 39.5 to 40 inches. I know we only had about 1.3 inches total bigger of a tire from factory. So if you cut that in half, that's about almost a little over 3/4 of an inch. So I was expecting a little bit more than just a half of an inch, but that is what it's saying. Now the rear was 41 3/8. And we are getting 43 and almost a little over 1/4. I'll call it 5/16. Huh, so that's weird. So the rear got almost 2 inches taller, but the front only got a half of an inch taller. The only thing that I can say that may have set that off a little bit, we had 6 tires in the bed when I measured it. So that kind of makes sense, doesn't it? 6 tires in the bed of this truck. They're probably, I want to say maybe 40, 50, 60 pounds per tire. So that's a couple hundred pounds in the bed of the truck. If that was pushing down on the bed of the truck, then obviously that's affecting the numbers a little bit. So the rear was squatted and the front was lifted, but now with the weight out, the front is pitched back down and the rear is pitching back up. So shoot, I probably should have measured here in the garage with the tires not in the in the bed of the truck. Oh well, we know that it got taller, and it is a true taller. It's not like just putting on like a truck or bed lift that's only lifting the cab. Tires actually are lifting the truck off the ground a little bit, so you are getting a little bit more ground clearance. So that is why I do like bigger tires. But let's go ahead and check one other thing out. If you guys remember, we went ahead and put an oil catch can on this truck a while ago. I've got probably almost 2,000 miles on it. So I am curious, do you think we actually are starting to catch oil in our catch can, but at the exact same time we did the new CCV filter? So that filter has got so much media in there, any blow-by that's coming up through the engine should be getting trapped in the OEM media that's in there, not allowing anything to come out and actually get down into the turbo. Now again, the Porsche's air oil separator, that was letting out a ton of oil into the catch can. So the catch can basically was needed because so much was blowing out. But we're talking a very little like handheld air oil separator that probably just wasn't doing that good of a job. The factory CCV filter on this truck, again, there's so much, probably 6 different individual like cotton balls or cotton like spools, if you will, that can capture all of that. And it only being 2,000 miles old, I'm gonna go ahead and guess that that media is capturing everything. And I want to say that this thing is probably empty, which means as long as you change out your CCV filter appropriately or more than that 75,000 miles, pretty much makes you not needing an oil catch can or air oil separator like at all. All right, what do we got? What do we got? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Bone dry. Even scraping my finger down in this thing, my finger is 100% completely clean. Wow. Well, Porsche, I think you should probably take a note from Ram here, or at least from Cummins, and learn how to develop something that separates your air and oil. Again, that CCV filter is brand new, only 2,000 miles on it. We did see when we installed this guy and changed that out that we did have a drop of oil down in the turbo, but the engine had almost 60,000 miles on it. So it was pretty much time to change out that CCV filter. But that's crazy. We did all this work in putting on an oil catch can, and it is 1,000% not needed. Good thing this only cost about $40, but yeah, I am glad that Cummins knows what they're doing. Well, there you have it for this video, I think. Yeah, it was only about tires, and we checked the catch can that we did in a previous video. I do have a few more things that we have to do on this maintenance-wise. It is time, or coming up on time. We've got to change out the front and rear diff oil, and I forgot when we did the transmission, we probably should have done the transfer case also and put new fluid in there. And the fluid in the transfer case is the same as the transmission, so we should have just done it all at once. The diffs need different fluid, but again, we're still kind of hooked up with AMSOIL that I'm spending $10 a month for their subscription. So every fluid that we get comes with like 20 or 25% off. So that's gonna help save some money on the front and rear diff oil. And then I might just go ahead and one-time purchase, get some engine oil for when my first oil change is gonna be needed by us. And then I am planning on changing out the fuel filters on the front and the rear. The factory ones is a fuel filter that sits in a plastic housing. I'm thinking about actually changing that out for, there's an adapter kit out there that you can use like an aftermarket like cat filter. So all steel construction, it's just a screw on like metal oil filter instead of a filter like being inside of a plastic like can. I think that design's a little bit better than what the factory has, especially with the rear where the plastic one can get like hit and damaged and everything. So we may do that, just kind of like a little bit easier of an upgrade for the fuel filters, because those need done every 15,000 miles. And we already have about 2,500 miles on the truck. So we are cutting away at those miles that we have to change them out sooner rather than later. But let me know down in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think. Anything that you guys would have done differently, tire or wheel wise. I love these factory night wheels, so I think it fits the truck perfectly, especially with all of the package on it. So I don't think I should have upgraded wheels to get something bigger or different. But there is definitely a lot of room in there that you could definitely put some 35s, or some people I think even put 37s with an aftermarket wheel, that you've got plenty of room in there. But I don't think it's really warranted, and that would definitely kill our miles per gallon. But again, comment down below. Let me know what you guys think. Tell me if I want to upgrade anything else. Let me know what parts you guys put on your truck and something that I should be looking at. And then we'll just go from there. So, till next time, take care.